Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome to Testa and Neal. Keep it real right here on WWSU 106.9 FM or on our YouTube channel, WWSU 1069. My name's Shea Neal. I didn't screw up the intro today like I did yesterday. Parker Testa alongside with me. And we're happy that you joined us here for another day of sports talk. Parker, it's our first show since we got named WWSU Show of the Week. Let's get it.
Yeah, this is awesome. Morgan's been kicking it, and if you're not on Team Testa, what are you doing?
Why'd you have to do that? Why'd you have to come in here? We were having a good time, and you come in here and you got to start that.
Well, I'm having a good time promoting my brand.
Everyone we've talked to isn't on your team.
They should be, though.
Yeah, but they're not.
I don't care if they're not. They should be.
You're outnumbered. You're going to war with like a bag of Fritos, and I've got an army.
You know what? I'd be okay with that because Fritos beats your army every time.
That's fair. I don't have the 300 Spartans that Leonidas had. I have media nerds. My second lieutenant, Justin Kinner.
Oh, no. No, Justin would be a good, general or second lieutenant.
Justin would be a good, I don't know. He's still got to get me back on my liners that he said he'd record like 3 weeks ago. Legit texted me the day after I sent him, said, I'm going to get him back to you today. In 3 weeks. Not saying I'm not upset. I'm just saying. We got a lot of show to get into today. The Phoenix Suns look spectacular against the Denver Nuggets in Game 2. The Indiana Pacers are in the market for a new head coach, which is what we're going to start off with. A little bit later in hour number 1, the best and worst off seasons in the NFL. Who won the off season? Who lost the off season? We'll get into that. And then in hour number 2, MLB stadiums is our tier list today. I'm excited for this one because there's a lot of really, really good stadiums. I'm going to have a lot of trouble. I'm going to want to put like half of these in A or S, and it's going to be hard for me to kind of pick the best of the best. But a lot of show to get into. And before we dive in, Parker, any thoughts?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I'm excited for it. I'll get my Pacers complaining off of my chest. And, we'll talk about football, baseball, and basketball. So we're going to hit on a lot of different things today.
No doubt about it. Let's dive into it. The Indiana Pacers part ways with head coach Nate Bjorkgren after one season. Just could not get, just kind of lost the locker room, lost the front office support. It wasn't a good year for the Pacers. And eventually the front office, Kevin Pritchard, just kind of decides to scratch it, start over. And the Pacers are in the market for a new coach. So we found this article. There's a lot of intriguing names on this list. But before we dive into those potential replacements, your thoughts on Bjorkgren out in Indiana?
Yeah, I thought it was, I'm honestly surprised it took this long. It's been widely regarded as widely known that the players didn't like him. And he was a guy who had never been a head coach before in his life. And he's just kind of thrown into the wolves there here in an Indianapolis market that is, they know basketball, and they will not accept anything less than playoff caliber basketball. And Nate 2.0 didn't really bring that. They got to the play-in tournament, which it was fine, but they couldn't win. So. I thought it was a matter of time before he would get fired. I'm honestly surprised it took this long.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised too. I think that this was kind of something that we knew wasn't working dating back to a couple months ago. And maybe the Pacers didn't want to do a full-on coaching search, and that's why they tried to, see if there were any internal candidates or see if they could make it work for another year. But at the end of the day, like we said, it was just something that wasn't going to work. It wasn't working. And, I mean, they just had to kind of scratch it and start over and try again. So We found this list from the Indy Star on some replacements, potential replacements that could be the next head coach of the Indiana Pacers. And let's start off with one that you're very interested in, Kenny Atkinson. He was fired as the Nets head coach after the 2019-2020 season, was replaced by Steve Nash, but his reputation is very, very strong. He rebuilt that Nets roster, turned them into a playoff team, and the team fired him before he could coach Durant and Kyrie. The culture could be appealing to the Pacers after dealing with an unstable locker room. Atkinson is obviously a very, very solid, has a very, very solid reputation. And a lot of players speak highly on him as a hell of a coach.
Yeah, this is one that I'm really, I like this one. I really do. It's one where a guy he's proven that he can coach superstars. The Pacers don't have a set in stone superstar, but I think they can find one here this offseason. They don't. I don't believe they have room for a max deal, but they need a culture change, and Coach Bjorken really didn't get to do that. So I think Coach Atkinson will do a fantastic job anywhere he goes. But I think the Pacers it has got to be an appealing one for sure.
No doubt about it. And I think that, like you said, I mean, it seems like a mutual good partnership where Kenny Atkinson gets a second chance as a head coach. And unlike with the Nets, he's not taking over a team that's, one of the worst in the league and trying to kind of completely revamp them. He's taking a team that's mediocre but has some pieces in place like Sabonis, like TJ Warren, like Malcolm Brogdon. And you can really, you're just a couple pieces away and some solid coaching away from this team being a top 5 team in the East again.
Yeah, and this is one that I think like you said, the Pacers need a culture change, and they need somebody that can come in and take care of that locker room, because the locker room is the most important part of your entire operation. So if you lose that, you lose the team, and I think that's what we saw with Nate Bjorkgren here this past season. And after only lasting 1 year, you could tell that it really wasn't working. So. Coach Atkinson is an interesting. It's an interesting one for sure. So I'm interested to see what the Pacers ultimately decide to do. There's a bunch of interesting names on this list. One that really intrigues me is Mike D'Antoni. I thought they should have hired Mike D'Antoni last year, but they didn't. So this is another. This is one that he had success in Houston, and he's one of the most NBA's most successful coaches that we've seen in recent years. So that's one that I'm interested in as well. Another one that I like a lot. It really intrigues me. A guy who was just fired in Portland, and that's Terry Stotts. So there's a lot of interesting names that are out there. I'm sure Kevin Pritchard and company will do their homework on guys that they wanted. It's Adrian Wojnarowski put out a tweet earlier that said they're going to look for a more experienced head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I like the like you mentioned, the D'Antoni fit. Obviously, after McMillan left, was relieved of his duties, the Pacers were really looking for a young offensive mind to take this kind of organization to a new level, and they thought they had it in Bjorkgren. They did not. Mike D'Antoni, certainly an offensive mind with his schemes in Phoenix and Houston. I mean, the only knock on D'Antoni is the same thing that that bothered them about Nate McMillan, and it's that he struggles to find success in the playoffs. With Stotts, I like Stotts as well. Stotts obviously has had a really strong tenure with the Blazers. He was there for 9 seasons. The Blazers made the playoffs 8 times in those 9 seasons. He went to Bloomington North in Indiana. And he's an Indiana guy. But I mean, he's coached the Supersonics, the Bucks, the Warriors, and the Mavericks, and he was also the head coach of the Hawks for a while. So he's got the experience that they're looking for, and he's an Indiana guy. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if they tried to, at least test the waters on potentially hiring Terry Stotts.
Yeah, so they're going to look like Woj put out earlier. They're going to look for a more experienced guy. So whether that's Stotts, whether that's D'Antoni, whether that's Kenny Atkinson, who knows? So And maybe there's a guy who comes out of the woodworks like a really experienced assistant that we haven't thought of. So, um, another guy that comes to mind. I doubt it'll happen because he's a big name for a few other jobs, but that's Jason Kidd. So there's some experienced names that are out there, and we'll see what the Simon family and Kevin Pritchard ultimately decide on.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk, or maybe not the last one, but another coach I want to talk about on this list is a guy that he played obviously for the Pacers, and he was I think he was a very solid coach, and that's Mark Jackson. He was the coach of the Warriors, went 121 and 109, but was replaced by Steve Kerr, and he's never really gotten that second chance. He's currently on ESPN and ABC as a commentator, but he played for the Pacers, and obviously a Pacers, legend at point guard. And he did great things with the Warriors. So another Indiana guy to keep your eye on. Stotts from Bloomington North, but Mark Jackson's a guy that has ties to the Pacers organization, and the Pacers could very well be his second chance at a head coaching gig.
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. So, he had some success in with the Warriors, but they ultimately went and found Steve Kerr. I'm interested to see what the Pacers really decide to do. There were some guys last year that they were kind of looking after, but ultimately decided on Coach Bjorkgren. Didn't work out, so we'll see what they ultimately decide to do here coming up in the next few weeks. The Pacers are going to do their homework, and they want a guy that can kind of hold the locker room down, and whether that's Mark Jackson, whether that's Atkinson, or some of these more experienced guys like another name on this list is Brett Brown. So like Brown, D'Antoni, and as well as Stotts. So there's so many names out there that are going to be thrown around, and I'm really interested to see what they ultimately decide to do.
Yeah, and some names of, obviously, I think they're going to go in an experienced direction, but some names to keep your eye on that aren't as experienced, maybe. Chauncey Billups, one of the top young assistants in the NBA, is with the Clippers right now, and Ty Lue, but he's it was his first season as an NBA coach, so he doesn't have that experience, but he was an analyst. He's considered one of the better up and coming guys. Another guy that I'd really be interested in seeing how much of an impact he would have is Dan Craig. Dan Craig played at Plymouth State and then was a grad assistant at Bloomsburg. But he was one of the top assistants under Eric Spoelstra in the Miami Heat after winning a couple D-League titles with the Sioux Falls Skyforce. And then last year he was the associate head coach for Ty Lue with the Clippers. So not a guy that's been a head coach, but very similar to Spoelstra. He came up through the ranks, came up as an intern, and really worked hard. And he could be in line to get a chance as a head coach too. Maybe not with the Pacers because they're kind of looking for more of an experienced guy. But he's a name to keep your eye on as well because he's got some more Indiana ties to him.
Yeah, and he came a similar route to Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra, everybody knows he was a video guy for the Miami Heat. 10, 15 years ago, and now he's not 10 years ago, but here come about 15 years ago, and now he's
multiple-time championship head coach.
He's won finals as a head coach of the Miami Heat, so he's a similar route to Spoelstra does, Dan Craig. So there's lots of names that are going to be thrown out. Dan Craig is an interesting one under Ty Lue as well as Chauncey Billups. I'm fascinated with this. I really am. And I think the Pacers are going to try to get it right this time because they missed on Coach Bjorkgren. So we'll see what Kevin Pritchard and company decide to do here. This is I've had multiple complaining and tirades about the Pacers and how they're a horrible franchise and so this is big for Pacers fans. It really is.
And the last name I want to throw out here is a guy that I'm not as high on as some other guys that we talked about, like Mark Jackson, like Mike D'Antoni, like Kenny Atkinson, guys like that. But it's a name that I saw on this list that I think is interesting, and it's Brett Brown. He obviously was The process coach with the Philadelphia 76ers really struggled his first 4 years while they were terrible, but then had back-to-back 50-win seasons. Brown has been widely praised for his ability to handle difficult situations and developing players, but he was fired following last season, and it was believed that Brown should have handled a talented but a mismatched roster better.
Yeah. So
Joel Embiid said that he wished that they had found their identity. He felt like the focus wasn't always there. So it's an interesting case. Brett Brown has the kind of the pedigree of winning seasons in Philadelphia, and he's known for having that ability to develop players and take teams to the next level. But how high is Brett Brown's really ceiling?
Yeah. So this one's interesting to me because like this says he's been praised as a guy who can handle difficult situations, and the Pacers are a difficult situation right now. There's lots of inner turmoil with with the players. So we'll see if Brett Brown is a name who continues to be or in the running as one of the finalists for this job.
He sure does. So again, if you're just now joining us, Nate Bjorkgren out as the head coach of the Indiana Pacers. They're looking for a new head coach. We talked about some of the names that could be involved in that search: Mike D'Antoni, Dan Craig, Kenny Atkinson, Mark Jackson, Chauncey Billups, and maybe even a guy like Brett Brown, just to name a few. All right, Parker, let's get into the NFL. We found an article here on ESPN. This is from Bill Barnwell, and I forgot to share this with you, so let me do that really quick while we're recording here. But oh crap, hang on, my bad. I pressed paste instead of copy. Live radio, folks. This is fine. All right. Hope you're all having a good one. Follow us on our social media at WWSG1069. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. As well as you can also follow our personals at Parker Testa, at ESPN Shea Neal. So a lot to get into still in this show, but let's start this NFL one. The best and worst off seasons of 2021. Let's start with the good news, shall we? And the teams that had the best off seasons. Number one, and this is according to Bill Barnwell, like I said, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What went right? The Super Bowl champions managed to bring back just about everybody from their team that won it all. 31 Bucs players lined up for at least 200 snaps on offense or defense a year ago. All 31 of those players are back. The most conspicuous departure might be swing tackle Joe Haeg. Tampa didn't add much outside of former Bengals third down back Giovanni Bernard, but this is about as much continuity, for an NFL team as you can imagine from year to year. The Bucs also managed to keep Todd Bowles on staff after they shut down Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. The only thing that really went wrong for this Buccaneers roster is that everyone got a year older. But other than that, I agree with this. I mean, defending Super Bowl champions, guys like Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul were free agents, and guys like Todd Bowles were expected to get head coaching jobs, and they weren't sure what they'd be able to bring back. And the fact that they brought back everyone from that Super Bowl roster makes them even more dangerous as defending champs.
It does. And, well, like you said, they brought back literally every single one of their starters that they had last year. And this says with the exception of, he's not a starter, but the most interesting one is Joe Haeg, the versatile offensive lineman. But this is still a very scary team, and I think they got to be the favorites for the Super Bowl again this year. Certainly because they returned pretty much the same team that they had last year. And whenever Brady's your quarterback, you certainly have a shot at winning the NFL and winning the Super Bowl.
You sure do. What is that?
This is the silence Volvo never wants you to hear.
My bad. That is me. That was a really weird ad because it was like 5 seconds of running water, and I'm like, what is that? When we open ESPN articles, there's ads, and that's on me that I didn't pause it. So, but let's get to number two. Number two is the New England Patriots. What went right? The Patriots found short-term and long-term options at quarterback by re-signing Cam Newton and using first-round pick on Mac Jones. Neither player cost as much as it seemed. Newton's one-year deal is really a $2 million guarantee, while the Pats were able to stay put in the draft and pick Jones at number 15 without having to give away any other picks. Those quarterbacks will play with significantly improved weapons after the Patriots went on a spending spree. They bring in Trent Brown. They also get Kyle Van Noy, Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung. Decided to retire, but they do bring in guys like Matt Judon, Jalen Mills, Davin Godchaux, Nelson Aguilar. So it's a really good team that went that got a lot better. I don't know. I don't think they compete with the Bills to win the AFC East, but they're definitely competing with the Dolphins for a wild card spot. Really, the only thing that I think they could have done differently is maybe invest a little bit more in a top tier receiver like a Will Fuller instead of a guy like Aguilar. But they decided to use that into their tight ends. They now have Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, and obviously Bill Belichick's one of the best of all time. So who am I to argue with Bill Belichick? But the Patriots for sure got a lot better.
Yeah, they did, and I'm not going to argue with old Billy B. So this is one, or this Patriots team is one that I'm going to be looking out for sure. It seemed like they signed literally everybody available on the free agent market this offseason.
They did. When NFL free agency was going on, we'd check our phone like every 15 minutes, and it said Patriots agreed a 4-year deal with this guy, and you're like, oh my goodness, save some for the rest of them.
Right. So. And I think the most interesting part about this team is the quarterback situation. Is it going to be Cam for most of the year, or is Mac Jones going to enter in the? Is he going to start earlier than we think? So I'm excited for this this quarterback battle in New England, but also to see just a lot of new faces on this Patriots team.
For sure. Number 3 for the most improved, or who had the best off seasons, I should say. The LA Chargers. The LA Chargers shored up an offensive line that ranked worst in the NFL last year. They get Corey Linsley from the Packers, Matt Filer from the Steelers, and also take Rashawn Slater. They also signed Chase Daniel to get a backup for Justin Herbert. Their defense, though, did take a hit. They lose Melvin Ingram, Casey Hayward, and Rayshon Jenkins. They did bring in Asante Samuel Jr., Joey Bosa, excuse me, and then also have Kyler Fackrell that they brought in from Green Bay, Derwin James coming back, and Brandon Staley coming in. I think that it's a good team. Like this article says, they lost a couple pieces on defense, but their offensive line was their biggest hole by far last year, and it's a lot better. Just those 3 names that we mentioned, Filer, Slater, and Linsley, is going to take it from worst in the league to probably above average.
Yeah, it certainly will. And this was the biggest downfall, like you said, of this Chargers team last year. And you need to protect your quarterback. Everybody knows that. So, especially if you're out there and you're a Bengals fan right now. So, you got to protect the quarterback. So this is one thing that Tom Telesco, they knew that, and Brandon Staley in Los Angeles, new head coach there for the Chargers, and Tom Telesco know that. So, and they went out and they upgraded for sure. And I think we're going to see, due to this upgraded offensive line, I think we're going to see a really improved Chargers team and a much better Justin Herbert coming up here this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think Herbert, maybe not this year, but I think Herbert's definitely going to be in, MVP conversations in, a very short amount of time. So I think he'll be definitely taking a next step as well. For number 4, it's the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens imported talent around Lamar Jackson. They get Kevin Zeitler and Alejandro Villanueva to replace Orlando Brown, who was dealt to the Chiefs for a bunch of draft picks. They get a first-rounder for a player who is likely to leave in free agency next year. That's a nice turn, even if it meant dealing him to an AFC rival. They also bring in Sammy Watkins and draft Rashad Bateman with their first-round pick. They have Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews. They could have one of the best receiving cores in football if somebody has a breakout season. The only thing that went wrong for this team is they lose their Pro Bowl tackle, Orlando Brown. And that's, they got a good return for him, but they traded him to a team that might keep him out of the Super Bowl, and they also lose Matthew Judon on defense and haven't really signed a replacement yet to be that next dominant pass rusher for the Ravens. Tyus Bowser isn't what we thought he'd be, and this isn't the days of Terrell Suggs anymore. So the Ravens don't really have that number one pass rusher at this point in time.
No, they don't. And I think this is what John Harbaugh's pride. He's taken pride in throughout his entire career, and that's his defense. So they've lost a big piece in Judon, and and also a big piece on their own line. They lost a left tackle, and I think most people know that left tackle is one of the most difficult positions to find a really good player at, and Brown is one of them. And it's also really difficult to find if you lose that really good player. It's really hard to find a replacement. So I think the Ravens are still going to compete in this division, but I think they won't be as I'm a lot lower on the Ravens as some people are. I'm not as high as some people are on the Ravens, but I think they still have a chance to compete with the addition of Watson and Rashad Bateman. They still have Marquise Brown, and Mark Andrews. So this offense is still very good. The defense is what worries me, though.
Yeah, that defense has to be ready to, take that next step. Number 5, the Washington football team. The Washington football team did a great job of, sifting through improvements to the roster. They bring in William Jackson to replace Ronald Darby, a higher caliber premium cornerback. They also bring in a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick to push Taylor Heineke after Heineke had a good stretch of play. They bring in Curtis Samuel, who's a perfect fit to complement Terry McLaurin. Jamin Davis with their first-round pick. Obviously, Brandon Scherf, still a top-tier offensive lineman. Eric Flowers goes back to Washington to play guard. They get Charles Leno. They get Samuel Cosme with their second-round pick. It's a team that got a lot better. The only thing that I think that Washington needs to do to kind of cap off this offseason is get that extension with Scherf done, because if you wait too long, the Colts are going to sign the extension with Quentin Nelson, and then Scherf's going to want to be the highest paid guard in the league, and I mean that's just going to be more money to take out of the pockets of WFT.
Yeah, and that's one that I'm hoping that the Colts get done before Scherf, so they don't have to pay Quentin Nelson a whole lot of money. He's already going to be the highest paid offensive lineman in football, but that number is really going to just depend on what either it's really a cat and mouse game. Who's going to sign who first? But one thing about that, I just want to say this really quick. I loved, the first day of school chalkboard things that the Washington football team did yesterday. The one Ryan Fitzpatrick had was hilarious.
My teacher is Mr. Rivera. My friends are Curtis and Terry.
Yeah, I mean, it's my first day of year 17. It was great, but Ronald Darby was good and last year, and Heineke surprised everybody in the playoffs. So, still they got Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, and like you said, they added Jamin Davis. So, the Washington football team are going to be interesting for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to do the top 10 teams for best off seasons. So, let's continue it here with number 6. But like you said, with the Washington football team, it's an interesting team, and I'm going to watch a lot of, I feel like, Washington football this year because I think they're a very interesting case. Number 6 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, nobody's going to accuse the Chiefs of forgetting to protect their star quarterback. They went all in to improve the offensive line, of course, getting Joe Thuney, of course, trading for Orlando Brown as well. And then they also get Kyle Long. They get Mike Remmers, Austin Blythe, Creed Humphrey, Laurent Duvernay Tardif. I mean, they have like 7 quality caliber offensive linemen now. It went from a bottom 10 offensive line to a top 10 offensive line. The only thing that I am worried about with the Chiefs, and I'm not even really worried about it, is losing Sammy Watkins. They kind of need a new number 2 wide receiver. They tried to get Juju Smith-Schuster, but he went back to the Steelers, of course. So they have Tyreek Hill. They have Travis Kelce. Mecole Hardman's obviously very, very good, but we're going to see a lot more of Byron Pringle this year. And Byron Pringle has shown flashes of being a talented player. I just don't know if he's Sammy Watkins. So there might be a little bit of drop at wide receiver. But when you have Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes, I mean, your offense is going to be top tier regardless.
Yeah, it's gonna. This team has got to be the favorites in the AFC right now. And the two favorites are going to be the Bucks in the NFC and the Chiefs in the AFC. The defending conference champions are always the favorite to go into the next season unless something completely disastrous happens in the off season. But this Chiefs team is certainly really good. They tried to get Juju, and it really didn't work out. They lost Sammy Watkins, but they still have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, two of the best pass catchers in football. And they picked up Joe Thuney and Orlando Brown. So this team has certainly added some key pieces to help them on offense. But I really think this team has got to be the favorites in the AFC going into the year. I really do.
I agree with you. Number 7 is the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, they managed to bring back safety Marcus Williams, one of the worst cap situations of the past decade. The Saints were able to get Marcus Williams back. They had restructures, creative timing, and they will spread some of their cap casualty over the next couple years. But the Saints look a lot like the team that they were able to keep a lot of that roster that was really, really good. Obviously, Drew Brees is not coming back. Sorry.
Oh, man.
We got to stop doing these when I'm tired.
Yes, we do.
But they restructured Taysom Hill's contract. They also bring back Jameis Winston on a 1-year deal. Winston isn't Brees, but getting a starter caliber quarterback on only a $5.5 million contract isn't bad at all. They also work out extensions with Ryan Ramczyk, Marshawn Lattimore. They're trying to, I should say. The two of their young stars. They did lose Jared Cook, Emmanuel Sanders, Nick Easton, Sheldon Rankins. But the fact that they were in, cap hell, let's be real, and that they didn't have to trade away half that roster, they didn't have to really scrap and gut this team apart, is a win in itself. And really, it's crazy to say that, all you have to do is replace Drew Brees because he's a Hall of Famer and one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But if Jameis Winston can be an average NFL quarterback this season, or, if they go in Taysom Hill's direction, if he can be an average NFL quarterback this season, this Saints roster is still talented enough to win 11, 12 games.
Yeah, it is. And this is another one where we have like 3 or 4, maybe even more than that, really intriguing quarterback battles. And this New Orleans Saints one is no different. Jameis Winston, proven NFL vet. He can play well. He filled in well for Drew Brees when he was hurt last year. But Taysom Hill is the Swiss Army knife, and no one really knows how good of a quarterback he is. I think Sean Payton certainly has his work cut out for him because these are two guys who are certainly, they have the talent and they put in the work to do it. I don't think personally. I think it'll be Winston because I don't think Sean Payton wants to lose his Swiss Army knife that he has in Taysom Hill. So this New Orleans Saints team is certainly talented. Losing Drew Brees hurts, but you still have two certainly capable backups in Hill and Winston.
Yeah, you sure do. And I'm excited to watch the Saints this year. I mean, I'm not a Jameis Winston fan by any means. But I think he has a ton of arm talent, and I think with weapons like Michael Thomas, with weapons like Adam Troutman, the young tight end, and then Alvin Kamara, I mean, he's in a position to succeed. And Jameis has the arm talent, he has great leadership ability, and Sean Payton's a heck of a coach. I mean, if Jameis can't figure it out in this situation, he's just not going to be a good NFL quarterback for his whole career.
Right, and it's unfortunate because he's a guy who's won a passing title. He's the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft.
He threw 30 touchdowns in a year 2 years ago.
Right. So this is a guy who certainly has the talent and he's capable of playing well. We just haven't seen it very often. And he's been the backup in New Orleans now. This will be going on year 3. But I'm excited for some Saints football, and I'm really intrigued by what Sean Payton decides to do at the most important position in all of sports.
For sure. Number 8, the Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa got his help. Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle. Fuller signs a 1-year deal. Jalen Waddle, the 6th overall pick. And now, oh my goodness, the Dolphins suddenly go from one of the worst receiving corps in the league to one of the best groups in football. They also get Jacoby Brissett, who I think is a really quality backup option for Tua Tagovailoa. So they continued to reap the benefits of the Laramie Tunsil trade. They trade down from number 3, get 3 first-round picks from the 49ers, and then the Niners, of course, took Trey Lance. The Dolphins still walk away with Waddle at number 6. They did not get Jamar Chase, but Waddle isn't bad at all. They did get rid of Shaq Lawson, Eric Flowers, and Kyle Van Noy, but it's still a really good team. Liam Eichenberg, they bring in DJ Fluker, Matt Skura, not Lamar Jackson, but Skura was on the Ravens last year with Lamar Jackson. And then really the only thing that is left to do for the Dolphins is maybe get a little more depth on that offensive line, but they get the weapons that they needed to get at skill position, and they really made this defense a lot younger. And I like this Dolphins team a lot. With Brian Flores, they're very young, they're very hungry, and they're very talented. And maybe they're not Super Bowl contenders this year, but they're definitely, in the prepubescent stage of a Super Bowl organization.
Yeah, and this is this Dolphins team is one that's interesting for sure. Brian Flores, I love as a head coach. He's one of my favorite head coaches in football. And they certainly have a talented, they certainly have a talented, foundation there in Miami with, with Will Fuller, the additions of Will Fuller and Waddle, 2 guys who are certainly very talented wide receivers. They've taken some guys early in these drafts that, that it's starting to pay off for them, and no one really, thinks of the Dolphins as, playoff talent. But the talent is certainly there for them to be in the playoffs, and they've made it there, here in the last few years. So, I love watching Dolphins football. I'm not as high on Tua as a lot of people are, but like you said, Brissett is certainly a capable guy. If you need some wins here early or here in the season, if Tua is struggling a bit, you can insert Jacoby Brissett into that role, and he's certainly going to be he'll get the job done for you. So. The Dolphins are an interesting situation for sure, and I think they somehow win 10 games every single year, and no one knows how they do it, but they get it done. And they lost, like you said, they lost Lawson, Eric Flowers, and they cut Kyle Van Noy, but they get Benardrick McKinney, who's certainly one of the most talented linebackers in football. So this Dolphins team is going to be a lot of fun to watch here coming up next year.
They sure are. We're going to do the last 2 really quick so we can get to some of the worst teams as well in the offseason. Number 9, the Niners. Obviously, they moved up and got Trey Lance, who has a really high upside. And also, because now they're going to have a quarterback on a rookie deal, they can use that money that they save now on extensions for Fred Warner and Nick Bosa, 2 guys maybe you've heard of, Parker. They're pretty good at football. Also, they bring in Alex Mack at center. They re-sign Trent Williams. The only thing that really went wrong for this Niners team is the fact that they didn't get rid of Garoppolo, and they still have that contract on the books. But I like the way they set everything up here, so they're at number 9. Number 10, really quick, the Cleveland Browns. They bring in Jadeveon Clowney and Malik Jackson to help out Myles Garrett. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at linebacker. Greg Newsome helps out Denzel Ward and Troy Hill. In the secondary, they also have Grant Delpit, who was the 2nd rounder last year before he tore his Achilles. John Johnson. This secondary is quietly really, really nasty. This Browns team got a lot better. They did lose Larry Ogunjobi, Olivier Vernon, but I still think overall they got better. So I think the Browns should honestly even be higher than 10. But the Niners at 9 and the Browns at 10. What are your thoughts?
No, I think the Browns certainly should be higher on this list. I really think they should be. I think the Niners are this high on this list because of Trey Lance. But The Browns have certainly upgraded, and this is a team that I'm really uh, interested to watch because you can make the argument that they're one of the biggest threats to the Chiefs in the AFC behind the Buffalo Bills. So I think the Browns should be higher, but I'm really excited to see what they can do coming up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to some of the worst off seasons in the NFL, according to Bill Barnwell. By the way, he has the Colts at 14. So if you were curious, uh, but let's do the bottom 10 here. We'll start with number 22, and we'll work our way down. The Philadelphia Eagles are number 22. The Eagles are in a great position to rebuild after this year. After a disastrous season, they used this offseason to eat their vegetables. They'll have a relatively clean cap in 2022 and as many as 3 first-round picks after trading with the Dolphins. Jalen Hurts could be the guy, but they have Anthony Harris, or they brought in Anthony Harris, Ryan Kerrigan, Joe Flacco, Devontae Smith. But the only thing that the only thing that they could have done better, I guess, is I guess the whole situation with the Wentz thing, where now they have $33.8 million in dead money as part of that Wentz trade. So now, I mean, there's a cap on how good the Eagles can be this season because of how they handled that situation. So, Eagles, they got Wentz off the books. They have a bright future, especially if Jalen Hurts lives up to the hype. But they have a lot of dead money this year.
Yeah, they do, and Howie Roseman, could have handled that situation better, like you said. But they're hitting the reset button in Philadelphia. New head coach. The Jalen Hurts era is just beginning there. So they hit the reset button. They did. So they added Ryan Kerrigan. Joe Flacco will be there also to kind of be that veteran leader to kind of help Jalen Hurts along. So and they added Devontae Smith. The wide receiver was a position that the Eagles desperately needed going into this offseason. And they had Devontae Smith. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles come out and perform. And that's not a fan base that you want to perform badly for. So they're gonna have a fire under them to be good. So we'll see if they can follow through on it.
They sure will. Number 23, the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings grab their left tackle of the future in Christian Darrisaw. They also bring back Mackenzie Alexander, take an interesting chance on Patrick Peterson, and sign Bashad Breeland. They do lose Danielle Hunter. Well, they haven't lost him yet, but he's sitting out of OTAs because he wants a new contract. Adam Thielen had a nice extension, but then they gave him a new contract with 2 years left. So Hunter might not get a chance to get that extension. And they don't have a lot of depth at edge. So if Danielle Hunter doesn't play for the Vikings, they're really in trouble in that front seven. I like that I think that they need to get an edge rusher. That's their biggest thing. But I think that it'll be really interesting to see moving forward. The Vikings traded down for extra draft picks in the future. They could have had Rashawn Slater. So for the next couple of years, I mean, Darrisaw could end up being very, very good. But for the next couple of years, I'm sure we'll be tracking how good Slater is versus how good Darrisaw is because the Vikings decided on more draft picks down the road versus having Rashawn Slater right now.
Yeah. So maybe those, and it's going to depend on, how those future draft picks pan out as well. So, they were confident enough. Maybe or maybe Darrisaw was their guy all along. Who knows? But they trade back and they get Darrisaw, who I think is certainly capable of being one of the best offensive linemen. They come out of this draft class. So the Vikings are interesting. If they get Hunter back, it's certainly valuable. But they need to have Hunter back in order for this defense to come back to what we are accustomed to seeing from a Minnesota Vikings defense. So the Vikings are an interesting situation for sure. I mean, I love Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen is awesome. Kirk Cousins is not the best, but he's certainly capable of doing what you need to do as far as he'll get the job done for you. But I love this Vikings team. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I'm excited to see what end up looking like.
Number 24, the Cincinnati Bengals. I disagree with this one, and I know I'm a Bengals fan, but I think that they should be somewhere middle of the pack. I don't think they had as bad of an offseason as this kind of makes it seem like. They do add key pieces for Joe Burrow, former Vikings tackle Riley Reef, who's going to start at right tackle for the Bengals, Jamar Chase with the 5th overall pick. A lot of NFL analysts, a lot of NFL fans feel like the Bengals should have taken Penei Sewell, but Jamar Chase also helps protect Burrow because he gives them a receiver that he trusts on 50-50 balls, and it helps Burrow get the ball out more quickly. The Bengals did – I think that the only question mark I want to say is that they let Carl Lawson walk, and they replaced him with Trey Hendrickson, who had a really good year last year. But how consistent is he going to be with the Bengals? They also now have Quentin Spain coming back, who came with the team in November. Jonah Williams has actually ended up being pretty solid at left tackle, so they have Reef at right tackle. They also draft Jackson Carman in the 2nd round, who's going to play right guard. They improved. Could they have done better? Yeah, but I think they did a nice job on defense. Obviously, the Hendricks signing could end up, backfiring, but they go out and they bring in, or they get Trey Waynes back, who they signed last year. He missed all of last season with an injury. They go out and get Ricardo Allen. They obviously still have Von Bell and Jesse Bates, one of the best safety groups in the NFL. And then, just a couple pieces here and there. I think they did a good job of attacking small needs and making them, more important. They go out and take a chance on Eli Apple, Trey Waynes. Obviously, they end up bringing Chidobe Awuzie from the Cowboys, and they bring in Mike Hilton from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So a lot of new faces in Cincinnati this year. But overall, I think they got better. Could they have gotten a little bit better than what they did? Yeah. But I still think it's a middle of the pack offseason. I'm not saying it's a top 10 offseason, but I don't think it's a bottom 10 offseason either. I think it's kind of smack dab in the middle.
Yeah, I think so too. The Bengals are really interesting right now. They better be pretty good because I thought they're going to have one of the more surprising seasons next year, and that's a take that may end up backfiring horribly, and I'll look very stupid on radio if that happens. But this is the Bengals are they're just a team where I don't know, to be honest with you. A lot of people thought they should have drafted Sewell. I was one of those people. I know you were on the Chase train, but
I was cool with either, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm really interested to see how they use Jackson Carman with this offensive line. They're gonna they don't know what Jonah Williams is gonna be yet either, so they need to bring Jesse Bates back. He's one of the best safeties in football. Really the key right now is protecting Joe Burrow. If you protect Joe Burrow, most of your problems, not all of them, but most of them go away.
Yep. Let's skip a couple because we've only got about 10 minutes left here in hour number 2. So we're going to go to the bottom 5 and cover them. So we'll start with number 28, and that is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons hired Arthur Smith to be their coach, but I might be more excited about the fact that they talked Dean Pease out of retirement. He's about to coach his 29th season in the NFL as a defensive coordinator, which is insane. But the Falcons were in cap hell. Alex Mack left. Keanu Neal left. Julio Jones was traded to the Titans. They do bring in Kyle Pitts, and they still have Matt Ryan. But it's a team that lost a lot. Really, all they have left at this point that is sticking around, that's been a part of this team for a while, is Grady Jarrett, Matt Ryan, and Calvin Ridley. And I think that's the best thing they could do to start the next era of Falcons football. You got to get Calvin Ridley inked to an extension now that Julio's gone.
Yeah, you do. And this is still a receiving core that's really good. Even without Julio Jones, it takes a pretty big hit without Julio. But Arthur Smith has more things to worry about than Julio Jones. He's gone now. Move on. So Matt Ryan, I still think is capable of being a pretty talented quarterback in this league. He's older, but I still think he's pretty good. and they don't have a lot of cap. So this may be a year that we see the Falcons struggle a bit, but I still think the pieces are in place there for them to win at least 8 or 9 games.
I agree. Let's get to number 29. That's the Houston Texans. The Texans didn't do anything to send the franchise backwards, so they took a small step in the right direction. That's a great line to start it off. They didn't make anything worse, which is a step in the right direction. New general manager Nick Casario's plan was clear. They add 32 veterans to their roster. The vast majority arrived on one-year deals, so this might not be a long-term strategy, but they should be deeper across the board in 2021. Deshaun Watson reportedly requested a trade after the disastrous events of 2019 and 2020. He was then accused of sexual assault by 22 women. The Texans did not seem inclined to trade Watson for a haul of draft picks after his request, but until his cases are resolved, there's no way the team can even trade its quarterback. They end up hiring Ravens passing game coordinator David Culley as a head coach who had never been on the head coaching radar before getting the Texans job. He has experience, but it's hard to see how the veteran coach isn't being set up to fail. They signed Tyrod Taylor. They draft Davis Mills, excuse me. But it's just a team that's not going to be very good. They didn't get any worse, but they're just one of the worst teams in the league. And with the whole Deshaun Watson situation and getting a coach that I don't think a lot of people think is ready to be an NFL head coach, it's just a team that did not have a good offseason.
No, they didn't. The Texans right now, like this first line says, they're like when your parents go on vacation and they come back after a week and they say, "Hey, you didn't burn the house down. Good job." So this is what the Texans are right now, and they're certainly a mess, and I highly expect them to be one of the worst teams in the league. They're not going to be a whole lot of fun to watch on the field. So the Texans are a bit of a dumpster fire right now, and ironically, I say that they didn't get a whole lot worse, like this says, but they didn't get any better. So they didn't burn the house down. Good job, mom and dad.
Good job. All right, 3 more teams here in hour number 1. Number 30, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers got a pleasant surprise when Juju Smith-Schuster came back on a 1-year deal. It took a couple years to get Schuster back in the fold. Ben Roethlisberger back for another season. They also get Tyson Alulalu back as well, but they lose Bud Dupree. They lose Mike Hilton. They lose Steven Nelson. So now Justin Lane might be one of their top corners this year, and he hasn't really had a lot of playing time. Also, their offensive line is a mess. Marquise Pouncey retires. Villanueva, Matt Filer both leave in free agency. It's not a good it's not a team that's not very good in the trenches. They have now Najee Harris, but how good is Najee Harris going to be with a subpar offensive line? It's interesting. This guy, this article, Bill Barnwell says, Darisaw went 1 pick before the Steelers, and I agree with him here. I have to think that the Steelers would be in a better situation if they took Darisaw and then got a guy like Todd Gurley than they are with Najee Harris and this really bad offensive line. The best thing they can do right now is start thinking about what you want to do at the quarterback position after Roethlisberger retires. And 2 guys that you got to lock up long-term, TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Make sure you start building that defense around your stars.
Yeah, you think about the guys from that 04 draft class, those quarterbacks. Eli Manning, retired. Phillip Rivers, retired. Ben Roethlisberger ain't far behind. So,
yeah.
Right. So he's getting up there. So you gotta have a backup plan here, or a plan B, for when he ultimately does retire, because I think that time is coming sooner than we all think. So, Mason Rudolph has said that he wants to be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mason Rudolph can't throw a football if there was a guy 5 feet in front of him. So,
Mason Rudolph gets hit with helmets more than he throws touchdown passes.
Yeah. So you need a guy that's going to come in and learn the offense pretty quickly. And certainly you still have time. Ben is going to start this year. If he can stay healthy, and they have a successful year, I think this is his last year. And even if he gets hurt, I think this is his last year anyway. So you have time. Find a guy that you're confident that can take over the reins when Ben retires. I think that's top on their to-do list right now.
Yeah, I agree. And one last bash at Mason Rudolph before we move on to number 31. I'd rather have Rudolph the reindeer at quarterback than Mason Rudolph.
And that's saying something.
It is. That red nose, I mean, that alerts every single player on defense. So I don't know how successful you'd be with Rudolph the reindeer, but probably better off than Mason Rudolph. So number 31, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers were able to bring back their two most prominent free agents, Aaron Jones and Kevin King. Corey Linsley ends up leaving, but they do get a fourth-round compensatory pick. They also get Josh Myers in the second round to replace him as well. If you're a Packers fan who's been hiding under a rock for the past couple months, I have some bad news. Aaron Rodgers does not seem excited to play for the Green Bay Packers, and that's bad. But also, David Bakhtiari is coming back from a torn ACL. Eric Stokes is kind of a reach at corner. A.J. Dillon might end up being, getting a bigger role on offense, but it's tough because really the only thing the Packers can do right now is try and get Davante Adams locked up to an extension. But is Davante Adams going to want to stay in Green Bay if he doesn't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there? The Packers are just in a really tough spot.
They are. They're a mess right now. And I know the worst thing about it is Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to play there. And from everything that I've seen, Jordan Love isn't ready to play and isn't ready to start in the National Football League. So this is something that Gutekunst has to work out. Whether it's figuring it out with Aaron Rodgers or finding a serviceable veteran who can start while Jordan Love continues to develop. So they need to find a guy. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play, they need to find a veteran to fill in there. And you just don't want to be just terrible. And like you said, I think Davante Adams, if Aaron Rodgers isn't there, I don't think he's going to be there either.
No, I don't know why one of the best receivers in the NFL would want to play on a team that has a question mark at quarterback. Number 32, the last team we'll talk about here in hour number 1, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, for the third consecutive offseason, have finally fixed their defense. This time, however, they didn't let the draft picks they've been counting on stand in the way. Clelin Ferrell, Jonathan Abram, Trayvon Mullen are among the players who aren't guaranteed starting jobs after they bring in Carl Joseph, Casey Hayward Jr., and Yannick Ngakoue. They spent years importing talent on defense and failing to get the most out of it. So they bring in new defensive coordinator Gus Bradley. They get contracts for Ngakoue and John Brown on pretty good deals, but they gave Kenyon Drake a 2-year, $11 million deal to basically serve as a backup to Josh Jacobs. They also traded away Trent Brown, star center Rodney Hudson, and homegrown guard Gabe Jackson for mid to late round picks. They did get Alex Leatherwood to help replace the losses, but this team's really going to struggle in the trenches. Their defensive line, other than Ngakoue, is not great. Their offensive line took a huge step back. The Raiders need depth on that O-line, but they did get better on defense, but they might have the worst offensive line in the NFL right now, and that's going to be really tough for Derek Carr and Josh Jacobs to get going for this team.
Yeah, it is, and this is one that it's surprising. You think John Gruden, and you think good football, and this is one that you don't expect to be. The Raiders are an interesting story right now because, I just don't see how they're gonna perform. I really don't know. They're another team where I don't know. I like the Bengals. I think the Bengals are going to be pretty good. I think the Raiders are going to be pretty good, but I honestly don't know.
No, you don't, and it's tough to kind of, for a lot of these teams that we just talked about. A lot of these teams are at the bottom, aren't at the bottom because they're just bad football teams, except for the Texans. The Texans are a bad football team, but it's teams that have the most question marks because we've learned more times than not in previous years that if you're a team with a lot of question marks, usually the answers that come out of those question marks aren't always great. And that's why the more question marks you have, the more dangerous you are, in terms of, everything has to go right to be a good football team. But I don't think that, I just don't, I'm not, teams like the Raiders, teams like the Packers. They just have way too many question marks right now. That's why they're at the bottom of this list, because you can't buy into them as a good football team because you just don't know.
Yeah, you don't. And I'm. It's going to be interesting to see what John Gruden and company and Mike Mayock decide to do. They've added, Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. They got John Brown, Kenyon Drake is there as well to back up Josh Jacobs. They grabbed Alex Leatherwood in the first round, who we both thought was a mistake, but they believe in their guys. So we'll see what the Raiders ultimately turn out to be here coming up week 1.
We sure will. Hour number 1 in the books. We're going to step away for a few minutes. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Suns and Nuggets in game 2 tonight. The Suns get a big-time win, now in control of the series, leading at 2-0. Also, our tier list for MLB stadiums. Which ones make it into S tier? It's going to be really hard because I love about 22 stadiums in the MLB. So this one's going to be really hard for me to rank, but I'm excited for that. Any closing thoughts in hour number 1?
No, I'm excited. These tier lists have been so much fun, and
They sure have.
this one is one I'm looking forward to for sure.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to step away for just a few moments. When we come back, hour number 2, don't go anywhere. Keep it real. Keep it locked. We'll see you for hour number 2 in 5 minutes. Hour number 2 here of Testa and Neal, Keep It Real, right here on WWSU 106.9 FM. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on WWSU and our YouTube channel, WWSU 1069. Thanks for hanging out with us, like I said. A little bit of somber news to kick off hour number 2. Amir Garrett, Reds reliever, his pit bull, Dozer, one of the greatest dogs I've ever met in my life, has passed away. And so my thoughts and condolences to Amir. That was the coolest damn dog I've ever met, man. Dozer was a homie. Fly high.
Fly high to Dozer.
Ugh, what a guy. Man, that hurts. Got to meet him when Amir was pitching in Dayton, and Dozer's just such a good boy. I swear, man, sometimes losing dogs just hurts more than losing people.
Yes, it does.
It's brutal. We still got a lot to get into here in hour number 2. Let's start it off talking about the NBA playoffs tonight. The Phoenix Suns big-time win, 123-98 over the Denver Nuggets. Jokic played well tonight, but really didn't get a lot of help. Michael Porter Jr. struggled. Campazzo struggled, as well as guys like, I'm spacing, but Monte Morris. Nuggets just really didn't give Jokic a lot of help tonight, and the Suns played a really complete team game of basketball. Mikal Bridges was good. Jay Crowder was good. Chris Paul was great. 17 points, 15 assists. Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, like I said. This Suns team is really, really good, and they played a team game tonight, and that was the difference. The Nuggets were trying to keep up with one really, really good player, but the Suns were able to pull away because they had 6 or 7 players playing at a high level.
Yeah, and I think after going through the Lakers, I think the Suns are, fired up. When you beat the defending champions, you think you can beat anybody, and they're certainly looking like it right now. They're playing really well, and I think they have the momentum that could push them all the way to the NBA Finals with how they're playing right now. Even though Jokic played well, it wasn't much of a team effort tonight from Denver. Barton and Millsap had they had okay games, nothing too flashy, but it was really just an all-out team effort from the Phoenix Suns. Mikal Bridges had 16, Jay Crowder had 11, Ayton had 15, Devin Booker had 18, Chris Paul had 17, Torrey Craig had 10, Cameron Payne had 7. So they're it was just a completely team dominant game,
right,
from the Phoenix Suns, and that's why they won here tonight.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they did great. It's an interesting. I really thought the Nuggets were going to win one of the 2 games in Phoenix, and the fact that the Suns have really controlled both speaks really, really well for the Suns' chances in this series. Denver has been kind of put in a position now where they can't lose a home game. And that's a really tough position to be in. So Denver may be the deepest team in the NBA, but right now the Suns look like the best team in the West. They do.
Yeah, they do. And they are the 2 seed in the West, but they're not looking like it. They're looking like they've been here and done this before. And this is a team that I've been very high on all year long. That we haven't really expected them to be really good, and they are really good. And they beat the defending champions here in that last series. I thought that would be, I thought that would take energy out of them. I really did. But they're coming out and they're proving that this is no tall task that's too tall for them. They're playing really well against the Denver Nuggets team, who I've thought all along is the deepest team in the NBA, and they've controlled these first 2 games, and it's been no contest.
They sure have, and it's like you said. I mean, now we're at a point where the Nuggets need to win both games, Game 3 and Game 4 in Denver, to have a shot in this series, because you can't go back to Phoenix down 3-1, and you definitely can't be down 3-0. So this Phoenix team is way too talented to let Denver back in the series if they go down 3-0 or 3-1. So Denver's got to win both of these games in the Pepsi Center, and that's a really tall task, because the Suns team is hard to beat any night, let alone back-to-back games.
No, and yeah, they're really tough. And they win both games at home to the Suns. And these 2 home games for the Denver Nuggets are going to be huge because you can't go home down 2-0 and lose another game because they have the momentum. They know how to win at your place. So it's going to be tough for Denver to get back into this one, no doubt, because they go home. Now, if they can even up this series and win both these games at the Pepsi Center, they got a shot. But it's going to be really tough because this Suns team is looking damn good right now.
They sure are. All right. Well, I want to make sure we have enough time to get to this, so let's do it. Our tier list of the day, MLB stadiums. I'm really excited for this one. So if you're following along on YouTube, I'm gonna share the screen just like we have been doing all week. Here we go. MLB stadiums. S tier, A tier, B tier, B, C, and D. We do not have the stadiums. We tried to find one with like the pictures of the stadiums, Parker, so they could see them for themselves.
Yeah.
But the pictures were too zoomed out, and I couldn't tell which stadium was for which team. So we're just going to have to do logos, and we'll do our best to explain what makes each stadium unique and why it's in each tier.
Yeah. So this is one I'm really looking forward to. I love visiting all the different MLB stadiums. I haven't been to all of them. I'm nowhere close to being to all of them, but I know they're all have their own unique quirks, and I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, So we've done AL East, NL East, and AL West to start off this week. So I'll let you pick one of the 3 divisions that we haven't done yet. Which do you want to start with today?
Let's do NL West.
NL West. Okay. So we'll start with your favorite team, Dodger Stadium. I don't think you're going to disagree with me. I'm going to drag it to S tier. It's relatively plain in the sense that it doesn't have a lot of unique features to it. It has the Jackie Robinson statue, but it's just a historic stadium with the concourse, with the bleacher seats out in left field. With it's just Dodger Stadium in Chavez Ravine is just a unique, once in a lifetime experience as a baseball fan, and it has to be an S tier for me.
Yeah, it is, and their Dodger Stadium is certainly full of a bunch of it's full of history. It's a stadium that's literally in the middle of 2 freaking mountains. Surrounding it is one of the biggest cities in the world. So it's very strange. You drive up into Chavez Ravine, and it seems like there's nothing around. It's just a mountain in the middle of this big city. So
it does.
And so it's really cool. There's a bunch of different, it has a whole bunch of different quirks and everything. But like you said, there's certainly nothing that really makes it unique, other than the fact that it's one of the most historical stadiums in baseball. So it's an S tier stadium for me also.
Okay. For next in the NL West, I want to do Oracle Park. And if I can find it, and they have it listed as AT&T, but it's now called Oracle Park. I debated putting this in S tier as well. I might move it up to S tier later. I got to kind of think about it a little more. I'm going to put it in A for right now. I've been to Oracle Park back when it was still called AT&T. The Coke bottle, the giant glove, the view of the bay, McCovey Cove. It's just a really cool experience. And we went out in June. It was perfect weather, 75 degrees and sunny. The best time to go to a baseball game in California. It was an absolute blast. And the Giants I have no ties to the Giants in terms of, the baseball team, but their stadium is top notch. I might move this up to S later on, but for now it's really solid A tier for me.
Yeah, I love AT&T Oracle. I love Oracle Park. It's one of the most, it's a lot of fun. It's McCovey Cove is, completely, you know it every time you see it. You take a look at AT&T Park, or I keep saying AT&T. I'm gonna say AT&T for the rest of this because I'm still not used to Oracle Park, but yeah, I love it. It's certainly one of the more interesting stadiums in baseball with the big the cove out in right field. And it's just awesome. The Giants are a team who I really don't particularly like. I love their manager and I love their ballpark, but I don't like their team.
Yeah. Let's get to Coors Field out in Colorado. I'm going to put this in B. because I love the mountain kind of vibe to it. I love the scoreboard that they have. The stadium itself, not super unique, but the backdrop of Denver with the mountains and just kind of the vibe that I get from Coors Field makes it an above average park for me.
Yeah, it's certainly a hitter's ballpark. There's the thin air makes the baseball really fly. Um, I love how they got the tall second deck in right field. And they got the huge jumbotron in left center. But it's one of the newer stadiums in baseball. Relatively new for the MLB. So I like Coors Field, and it's B tier for me also.
Let's do next up Chase Field. This one might be a little harsher for me. And it's just because there's so many top tier stadiums that I need to, for some of these, I need to kind of knock them a little bit. I like the swimming pool. I think it's a really cool idea out in right center field. I like that it's indoor, that, it has the retractable roof. It seems like Chase Field has a really fun time for a lot of fans, but I'm going to put it in C tier just because I don't think it brings the same experience that the three above it do that we've talked about so far. The pool is cool. But overall, to me, it's just more meh than some of the other ones we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I like Chase Field more than the next guy. I think I'm going to put it as a B tier stadium. The pool's a great idea. The retractable roofs are always cool. The Diamondbacks aren't a very good team, of course, but I mean, I love Chase Field as a whole. They got it's one of the cooler stadiums, I think. So it's a B tier stadium for me. But I understand where you're coming from. Lots of stadiums on this list that we are deserving of to be in higher tiers, but I
Yeah.
still think Chase Field is a B tier stadium.
Yeah, it's tough for me. I debated putting it in B as well. I'm gonna let you because I'm still kind of debating on this one. I'm gonna let you introduce Petco Park and where you'd put it.
Petco Park is, I love Petco Park. I really do. It's awesome. The Western Supply, building in left field. I love it. It's gonna be up there as an A tier stadium for me. It really is. They've hosted the All Star game numerous times, and you can see the background of San Diego. Right out of center field. So I love Petco Park. It's awesome. So it's an A tier stadium for me.
Yeah, I agree. Um, the Western Metal Supply Company building is awesome. They have that kind of bar out in right center field. It's just a really cool experience. And San Diego, California is one of the most, quote unquote perfect cities in America. So it's a cool experience for sure.
And,
Let's move
and,
on.
and not to mention, one of my favorite home runs in MLB history is that Bartolo Colon home run.
Bartolo. He's done it. The impossible has happened.
And the Mets vacate the dugout.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the AL West. We're going to start with Oko. Oko, I'm going to put in D. It's not the worst stadium in baseball, but it's not great. It's meant to be a football stadium. It's not meant to be a baseball stadium. I don't like the fact that their foul lines are or their foul territory is like 50 feet. Like, it just bugs me. It's just an ugly stadium. It's a bunch of, old, cold concrete bleachers that never really sell out because it's not a great stadium. So the Athletics baseball team deserves a lot better stadium than Oko.
Yeah, they do. It's a D tier stadium for me also. It's not like you said, not the worst in baseball, but it's a football stadium, and as good as the Athletics are, they're the only team that still has the bullpens, I believe, down the foul line. And every other team has abandoned those for safety reasons, obviously. But yeah, it's one of the worst stadiums in baseball. But yeah, D tier for me also.
All right, let's move on to who do I want to do next? Let's do Safeco with the Mariners. Um, Safeco. I like that when they had Felix Hernandez, they had the King's Corner with the fans. I thought that was pretty cool. Overall, I think it's a cool experience. I think it's a cool vibe, but there's nothing about it that really sets it apart for me. So in that sense, I think it's very similar to Coors. So I'm going to put it in B.
Yeah, I like Safeco. It's an interesting it's an interesting stadium. The Mariners are not a great team, um, but they have one of the cooler stadiums in baseball. They have that that big roof or that retractable. Um, I don't think it's retractable. It's not, but it's just this. It's huge, and I love it. It's 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 one of the more interesting ones for sure. Seattle has they have some two really cool stadiums. CenturyLink where the Seahawks play is really cool, and I love Safeco as well.
For sure. And let's move on to let's do our next one will be let's do Angel Stadium out in Anaheim. I like the vibe here. I like the rocks. I like just the Orange County, California. I think it's a really quality stadium. It's not Dodger Stadium, but I think it's a really cool experience to the point where I'd even put it in A tier. I think Angel Stadium is a top tier experience, along with stadiums like Petco and Oracle.
Yeah, I've been to Angel Stadium and I love it. The rocks in center field are awesome. Out front, they have this huge, this big life size version of the Angels logo, the A. And they light up that halo every time the Angels win. So I love Angel Stadium. It's one of the top tier stadiums for me in baseball as well. I'll put it in A tier also.
All right, another one in the AL West we're gonna do is, of course, Arlington. Their brand new stadium, Globe Life. I haven't obviously gotten a chance to go yet, but it looks really cool. I like the the aesthetic behind it. For now, I'll put it in B just because it's kind of brand new. It looks cool, but as of now, I haven't seen anything that really sets it apart and gets it above some of these top tier stadiums. So I think it's in B for me. But I'm excited to check it out in person down the road.
Yeah, I am too. I like this new stadium that they have there in Arlington. They got those big windows in left field. I think that are really cool. But like you said, it's pretty new for me to kind of take it all in. So it's going to be B tier for me as well. Is Globe Life Field.
I'll let you introduce this one as well, just like you did with Petco. Minute Maid Park, our final one in the AL West. Where are you putting Minute Maid?
I like Minute Maid. It's a cooler one, and I would put it as a B tier stadium. They got the retractable roof as well. They got that whatever you call that thing in center field, that big wall actually in left
It
field.
used to be that weird hill, but then they
Yeah,
finally got rid of it.
right.
What I really like about Minute Maid is the train tracks.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, I like that big wall in left field. They got those huge windows right there that look out into
Yeah,
into Houston. So
the Crawford boxes. Mm-hmm.
that retractable roof comes back as well. I like Minute Maid. It's going to be a B tier stadium for me.
Okay. I agree with a lot of what you just said. So let's move on to the NL Central, shall we? And I'm going to start with one that personally I think is the best stadium in the division, and I'm going to put it instantly in S tier, and that's PNC Park in the Pittsburgh Pirates. What a unique experience! The view of the Clemente Bridge, the view of downtown Pittsburgh, the view of the Allegheny, just the aesthetic that comes from PNC Park. The Pirates may be the biggest dumpster fire in the MLB, but that park is second to none.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd put it in S tier.
Really?
But I love PNC. It's an A tier stadium for me. The Pirates are terrible, and this has nothing to do with their stadium. I mean, it just doesn't quite have the history as some of the other stadiums do. But I love PNC. Like you said, the lookout to the Allegheny is really cool. And yeah, it's not quite S tier for me. But you see downtown Pittsburgh behind it, the bridge behind it as well. I love PNC, but I don't think I'd go as far to put it in S tier.
Okay, well, let's move on to one that I think we'll both agree on here, and that's Wrigley Field with the Cubs. This is another one that I'm dragging to S tier. And that's because just the history behind it. One of the second oldest stadium in all of baseball, only to Fenway Park, and it's a great monument of baseball. With the Cubs playing the ivy that grows. I mean, it's interesting because you see Cubs games in April and it's just a brick wall, and then when you get to June and July, it's the full beds of ivy. And the basket and the bleachers out in the outfield. It's Wrigley Field is such a unique and historic experience for any baseball fan to have. I haven't been to Wrigley Field yet, but I don't think that'll last much longer than a year or two.
Yeah, Wrigley is S tier for me. Personally, I have not been to Wrigley yet either. I'm planning for that to change here. Yeah, like you said, in the next year or two, because you got to go to Wrigley at some point in your life if you're a baseball fan. So it's an S tier stadium for me as well. I love the ivy that surrounds the outfield wall, and everything is still manually operated, manual scoreboards as well, just like Fenway. So I love Wrigley. It's an S tier stadium for me also.
All right, let's move on to my favorite team. That's the Cincinnati Reds in Great American Ballpark. They have the smokestacks, which I love. They shoot out fire. They have a brand new scoreboard that they just put in this year. It's a cool experience. You have the view of the Ohio River. You have the view of Kentucky off in the distance. It's a cool experience. It's an above average experience, but it's not a special. It's not a super special experience that every baseball fan needs to have. So I'm going to put it in B tier.
Yeah, it's a B tier stadium for me also. You look out, you have downtown since it's right in the middle of downtown Cincinnati. You see the Ohio River out there right behind it as you look out towards center field. I love those smokestacks, but it's an experience like none other at Great American, but not quite the experience of some of the others on this list. It's B tier for me also.
The final one in the NL Central is Busch Stadium in St. Louis. I'm going to put this one in A. I hate the Cardinals, but Big Mac Land, the Gateway Arch out in right center field. Busch Stadium just has so many memories to it, so many unforgettable experiences. Mark McGwire, Albert Pujols. Busch Stadium has to be A tier for me.
Yeah, it's A tier for me also. Just some of the views that you get there are like none other. You see the arch right out there beyond center field, that big grass patch there in center field as well. It's right in the middle of downtown St. Louis, so it's an A tier stadium for me.
Let's move on to the AL Central, and I'm going to start with Progressive Field in Cleveland. I will admit that I love the Mario coin sound effect that they have when somebody touches home plate after a home run. That's fantastic, and that deserves to be an S tier for celebrations. But the stadium itself, it's a cool experience. Cleveland fans really know how to have fun and have a good time. They love their baseball up there in Cleveland, Ohio. But it's just kind of a dull and dry stadium at this point compared to some of the other ones. So I'm going to put it in C.
Yeah, it's a C tier for me, stadium for me also. The experience in Cleveland I've heard is a pretty good one. They've hosted World Series games in 2016, but like you said, nothing really that makes it stand out or be different than really any other park. C for me also.
Next, I'm going to do Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Kauffman's an A tier for me. I love the waterfalls out in the outfield. I love the crown on the scoreboard. We mentioned yesterday with logos as well. Kansas City doesn't always have the best baseball teams. I know they won a World Series 6 years ago, but they're usually more times than not very good. But they kill the stadium game. They kill the logo game, and they're an A-tier stadium for me. Kaufman's an experience that I can't wait to experience because I haven't been to Kauffman yet, but that will definitely change.
Right. I love, Kauffman Stadium. They made their logo into the scoreboard in center field. They got the fountains there as well. It's an A-tier stadium for me. I love Kauffman Stadium. I'm trying to get there someday, and that's one that I'm really looking forward to going to.
Mm-hmm. Let's do next U.S. Cellular in Chicago. This one's a I don't know. It's I think I'm too harsh on it because I'm comparing it to Wrigley, which is also in the city, and obviously Wrigley's a top 3 stadium in the league. But it's pretty dull. It's pretty dry. There's nothing really special about it. It's a good team, but it's an average to below average stadium. I'm actually even going to put it in D because I think it's pretty similar to Oko.
Yeah, it's not a good one for me. I think the White Sox deserve better. They do, and it's a D tier stadium for me. Also, I'm just not a fan of this ballpark. It's on the south side, which is not a nice part of town. It's the only thing that's really around there. So it's a D tier stadium for me. The White Sox are a great team, but they deserve a better stadium.
Yeah, Comerica with the Detroit Tigers. I like Comerica a lot. I've been there. I think that it's really cool. I actually stayed in a hotel across the street from it a couple of years ago as well. But it's a stadium that's a cool experience, much like Cincinnati. It's a cool experience, but it's not an experience that every baseball fan I feel like has to have before they die. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. You might put it a little higher because I know you like Comerica, but for me, it's above average, but not spectacular.
Yeah, I like Comerica. It has its ups and its downs. There's an experience there it's certainly different than any other stadium in baseball because Detroit's just they don't have great teams at all in any sport. But I like Comerica Park. I'm gonna put it in B tier as well. But I'm just, I'm a little bit, I'm not as high as on Comerica as I used to be, but it's still a pretty good stadium for me.
Uh, this one I have a feeling we're gonna disagree on. I've been to Target Field, and I'm gonna put it in A tier because it's a really really cool stadium. The atmosphere, the fans love the Twins. It's really really fun to be there. They have really good food. They have really good suites, really cool bars. You have obviously the Twin City kind of logos shaking hands out in the outfield over the scoreboard. It's one of the newer stadiums. It was built in 2010. It's really cool with like the way they did the brick layout, and they have the overlaying awning in right field. And the Twins are a really good team and fun team to watch most of the time. Obviously, this year that's a little different, but to see guys like in the past when I went, they had Eddie Rosario, Miguel Sano, Josh Donaldson, Byron Buxton, Max Kepler, Mitch Garver. So it's just a really cool experience. It's an A tier stadium for me, but I understand if you haven't been to Target Field, it might not be A tier for everybody else.
Yeah, it's a B tier stadium for me. I love the Twins. I love their manager. But personally, I haven't been to Target Field. But just looking at pictures and stuff, I can certainly see why the experience can be really good. But I think the experience, you having been there changes your opinion on it. And certainly, we could say we could put some of these higher on this list that if you actually go and experience a game there, it could could change your mind and actually make you think lower of it. So Target Field is a B tier stadium for me, but I understand you having been there, you have a bit of a different opinion.
So I just realized we forgot the Brewers in the NL Central, and we forgot to do Miller Park. But I like Miller Park. I love Bernie. I love the yellow slide. It's a cool experience. It's a B tier stadium for me. My bad for forgetting about Miller Park, but again, like Cincinnati and like Comerica, cool stadium. But I can't put it in any higher than B because the stadiums in S and A are in a league of their own.
Yeah, I mean, I like Miller Park, and it has some aspects of it that are really cool. Um, it's certainly one of the most odd looking stadiums in baseball. They have like 6 or 7 arches going over it, but it's interesting for sure. I'm going to put it in C tier. I don't think it's the best, but it's certainly not terrible.
Let's get to the NL East. I'll let you pick who you want to start with, and I'll let you rate them.
I think we're going to start with the with the Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
I mean, I like this is one of the newer stadiums in baseball. Is SunTrust Park. I like it. I'm going to put it in B tier. I don't think it's terrible, because I haven't been there yet, but I like it. It certainly has its perks, and they've certainly done it up nicely there in Atlanta. So I'm going to put it in B tier.
They have. I like the Chop House. Braves fans are outstanding. It's a cool stadium, but I think a common theme I'm getting out of the B tier stadiums are cool stadiums, but stadiums that you don't have to drop everything to go see. If it's an S tier or A tier, I recommend making as soon as you can, making a trip to that stadium. But for B, if you get a chance, yeah, head there. But it's not it's not something that I feel like you have to, transfer jobs and uproot your family and move to that city to go to that stadium.
Right, right, and SunTrust is one that it's newer, and it's not like like you said, not drop everything, but you'll get there eventually.
Mm-hmm. Let's do Marlins Park. This one might ruffle some feathers because I know it's pretty new. I like the Clevelander Hotel. I don't think it's a bad stadium, but I'm not as high on it as some other people are. I'm going to put it in C.
Yeah, I mean, Marlins Park is interesting to me. It's certainly, it's different looking. They have, those windows in left field, and they have whatever the hell that monstrosity is in center field. And I don't know what that thing is, but it's interesting to me. I like it because it's newer, but I'm going to put it in B tier. But it's certainly interesting for sure.
All right. Let's do. How about we do Nationals Park? Nationals Park is, in my opinion, very, very similar to the Ranger Stadium in Arlington. They're kind of built the same way, with that grass patch in center field, the two decks in right. So I'm going to put them in the same spot because I think it's a very similar stadium. So Nationals Park goes in B for me as well.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty similar, and it's going to go in B also. The Nationals, they've had up and down seasons, but their stadium is it's pretty similar to most in the MLB, and it's like you said, very similar to the new field in Arlington. So B tier for me also.
Citizens Bank is going to be another one that I put in B tier. It's a cool stadium. I'd love to make a trip to Philly someday and go to a Phillies game, but I haven't felt like I have to go to Citizens Bank like now, like this season. So it's one that I think is cool. But much like a lot of these teams in B, a cool stadium, a unique experience, but not one that I'm rushing out the door to have.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I'm going to put it in B tier also. I like that big concourse in dead center field. The big patio they have in center field. They have the huge jumbotron on left. I like Citizens Bank Park, and I'm looking forward to going there. But it's B tier for me also.
And I'll tell you what's cool about Citizens Bank. They have 3 decks in right field. And if you're sitting in that third deck, you might be able to catch a Bryce bomb because he hits them pretty far, Parker.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
So this one for City Field, I'll let you help me decide on this. I'm tempted to put it in S tier. What do you think?
Yeah, it's certainly tempting. I love City Field. I really do.
I do too.
It's certainly one of the more interesting experiences in baseball is City Field. I honestly think I'm going to put it in S tier. I love City Field.
I agree with you, man. That app one center field, it's just personally, I'm just a spoiler alert. I'm going to put Yankee Stadium in S tier because of the history of the Yankees and because of Monument Park and because of, the Bronx and all that stuff. But the actual stadium for the Yankees is B or C tier. The experience makes it an S tier because it's the Yankees. But the Citi Field's the best stadium in New York.
It is, and I love City Field. They have that big jumbotron in center field. They got and then they have right next to it. There's that huge billboard full of a bunch of um, just they got like 2 TVs in the outfield at Citi Field, so it's an S tier stadium for me. I love it.
Let's get to the AL East, our final division of this tier list. We'll get the easy one out of the way. The worst stadium in baseball, Tropicana Field. Yeah, they have a Ray tank. That's okay. The catwalks are one of the worst things ever. It's just not a good stadium. And much like the A's and the White Sox, the Rays baseball team deserves a lot better than the Trop. And I hope that they get a new stadium here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, they do. You know it's bad when you hit a foul ball way up in the air, and you have a guy doing this because he doesn't know if it's going to come down or not because the ball gets stuck up there. It's like in school when you're playing dodgeball, you see like the one dodgeball up and stuck up in the lights or in the ceiling
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know if it's going to come down or not. That's what life is like playing baseball at Tropicana Field. So
Yep.
it's certainly the worst stadium in baseball, and it deserves to be in D tier.
All right, let's get the one that I spoiled out of the way. Yankee Stadium, S tier. Like I said, the stadium itself probably B tier, maybe even C tier. But the experience, it's the New York Yankees, it's Monument Park, it's the Bronx, New York, it's the Pinstripes, it's Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Garrett Cole. The experience, I mean, Yankee Stadium's one that you have to do before you die. So that's what makes it S tier.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it in A tier. I really am. Based on the actual stadium, like you said, it's B or C tier, and the experience is certainly great. But based on the experience alone is great, but the actual quality of the stadium is not the best at all. It's a B and C tier, stadium. So I'm gonna put it in an A tier.
Well, this is one that we'll definitely agree on. Fenway Park, the oldest stadium in baseball, and another S tier for me. The Green Monster is unbelievably unique, and I love it. It's funny to see how close together all the seats are at Fenway because it's 118 years old or whatever. But it's an experience you have to have. If you're a baseball fan, you have to make a trip to Fenway Park.
Yeah, and I'm hoping I will be coming up here in about a month or so. But I love Fenway. The Green Monsters is one that, or it makes it unique. You can actually go inside of the Green Monster when going to, when going to Fenway. So it's awesome. I love Fenway, and I can't wait to go. To be honest with you.
The Rogers Center in Toronto. I like the fact that it's got a hotel connected to it. I think that's really cool. And I don't think it's a bad stadium by any means, but it's another one of these meh ones that I'm going to stick in B tier. It's cool, and I like that it's kind of indoors, like I said, connected to a hotel. It's a cool vibe. It's unique. It's different, but it's not spectacular, and that's why I think I'm going to plop it in B.
Yeah, it's nothing too special. It's B tier stadium for me also, but the Blue Jays, they certainly have the talent to be really good, but Rogers Center is just kind of like you said, it's kind of a mass stadium, so it's B tier for me.
This last one is going to be another S tier for me, Parker. Camden Yards in Baltimore is absolutely gorgeous. Utah Street out in right field. You've got downtown Baltimore overlooking the stadium. It's just such a cool experience. Camden Yards, the AL East reps some really cool stadiums with, other than the Trop, I mean, 4 really, really quality stadiums in that division. But Fenway is probably the one that people know the best, but Camden Yards is definitely A tier at the absolute least, but I'm going to put it in S tier because I think it's one of those experiences that you have to have.
Yeah, I love Camden Yards. Personally, I have not been to Camden Yards yet, but from everything I hear, Camden Yards or Oracle Park at Camden Yards is what it's actually called. Is an experience you got to have at some point in your life, which I will get to someday. But yeah, it's an S tier stadium for me as well. The Orioles are they're not good, but they certainly play in one of the highest quality stadiums in baseball.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another day, another tier list right here on Keep It Real, and 4 days in, and they just get better and better, don't they?
Yes, they do. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. It was hard for me to rank a lot of those stadiums because, like, I mean, other than the 3 that we put in D, even the ones that I put in C, I don't have anything against, and I think they're cool. It's just you have to really consider what makes the stadium unique, and then throw in kind of the experience of going to a game for that team. And I think that's what really separated those 7 that we put, or the ones that ended up in S tier. I mean, I know we didn't agree on all of them. That I put some in S tier that you didn't, and you put a couple that I didn't, and whatever. But Fenway, Wrigley, Dodger Stadium, Camden Yards, whatever, PNC, whatever you want to put in that S tier, it's about what makes that stadium unique, and also about the experience that you have going to a game. It's the Dodger Stadium might not be insanely unique in terms of stuff that it offers at the stadium, but the experience is S tier without a doubt. And the same thing can be said for Fenway and Chicago, and a lot of these stadiums that we have high on this list. And I mean, I know S tier is the best of the best, but any stadium that we had in that A tier ranking, get to those stadiums as well. The S tier was kind of reserved for the 5 or 6 best of the best, but anything that we had in A is also a solid like 8.5 out of 10. So make sure you get there.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of these are ones that you got to get to, and certainly there are ones lower on our list that are certainly high quality stadiums that you should go to. But like Shea said, there's a lot of these that we can't put all of them in in S, A, and B. So it's just the best of the best that make the S tier, and some really quality stadiums in A and B tier also.
We got about 8 minutes left here in the show today. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on Keep It Real, WWSU 106.9 FM, or on our YouTube channel, WWSU 1069. You can follow our social medias at WWSU 1069. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow us on our personal Twitters at ESPN Shea Neal, at Parker Testa. And I'm sure we'll come up with a couple ideas for tomorrow's tier list on. I think we're going to start calling it Fan Pick Friday, and we'll just kind of let you pick what you want to hear, what you want to see, and we'll go based off of that, because this show's meant to have fun. And so what you want to hear, what you want to see on Friday, as long as it's within reason and it doesn't get us kicked off the air, I mean, I'm really up for anything.
Yeah, I am too. It's within reason, like you said, but I think that could be really fun. Let the listeners decide what they want to hear on the show on Fridays. It's gonna be a blast.
No doubt about it. So if you're just now joining us, you missed a little bit of the earlier on in the show. You can obviously catch it on YouTube when we're done. But we talked about the winners and losers of the NFL offseason. I think the Browns should have been higher on that list. We kind of touched on that. I think the Bengals shouldn't have been as low as they were, and I know that's going to sound like a biased Bengals fan, but I think they should have been a little bit higher, maybe more middle of the pack, because I don't think they got a ton better, but I also don't think they got worse. And the way that they were put in that list made it sound like they got worse, and I don't think that's the case at all. Other stuff we talked about today, obviously the Suns defeat the Denver Nuggets and take a 2-0 series lead in the NBA Western Conference semifinals. And we opened up the show talking about some coaches that could replace Nate Bjorkgren in Indiana. Mike D'Antoni, Dan Craig, Chauncey Billups, Mark Jackson. There's a lot of names, and it'll be interesting to follow the Pacers coaching search heading forward.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited to follow that search. We'll see who they can get there in Indy to kind of replace a bit of a mistake, if you will. Because from everything I hear, the Pacers the players did not like Nate Bjorkgren around, so we'll see if the Pacers can kind of right the ship this time around.
Yeah, and since we have about 5 minutes left in today's show, Parker, I wanted to do this if we got the time, and we did get the time. But let's just really quick touch on how dang good is Jacob deGrom.
It's not fair how good he is.
It's insane.
It's not fair.
I'm pulling up his stats right now, but they literally put his numbers side by side with Bob Gibson and Pedro Martinez, who have maybe had the 2 greatest seasons in the history of baseball for a pitcher. And Jacob deGrom is putting up better numbers so far into this season. Jacob deGrom has pitched in as I wait for this to pull up. Jacob deGrom has pitched in 9 games this season. He's 5-2 with a .62 earned run average. If you double that .62, Parker, it's 1.24. The second best ERA in baseball is 1.23. He's literally half of what second place is.
Yeah.
Like I said, 1 complete game shot out in 9 games started, 58 innings. He's only given up 25 hits, only 7 runs, only 4 earned runs, 3 on home runs, 8 walks, 93 strikeouts, a .57 whip, and hitters are hitting 128 against Jacob deGrom.
It's not fair. He's so good. I don't know how. I mean, I almost have no words, Shay.
How does it seem like he gets better with age? Him and Justin Verlander are weird. They've both aged better. Like they've gotten better as they've gotten older.
Right, and it's certainly weird, but I have no explanation for it because I don't know how they're doing it. But certainly deGrom is, he's certainly going to win. He's going to win the Cy Young.
He might win the MVP the way he's
going. He might win the National League MVP.
He might. I mean, you got guys like Jesse Winker, Nick Castellanos, Fernando Tatis Jr., Ronald Acuna in that conversation. And me being a Reds fan, I think Winker and Castellanos deserve to be in that conversation. But right now, I mean, it's hard. I can't argue against deGrom. So, yeah, Jesse Winker's been the best hitter in the National League so far this year. But can you say that a Reds team that's a game under 500 has gotten more value out of Jacob deGrom or out of Jesse Winker than the Mets have gotten out of Jacob deGrom? I don't know if you can.
No. The Mets would not be where they are without Jacob deGrom. I firmly believe that they would be a whole lot worse without Jacob deGrom and their pitching staff.
Right, and obviously the Reds would be worse without Jesse Winker, but the Reds would still be in 4th place without Jesse Winker. So, I mean, yes, the Reds are only 3.5 games out of first, and they're within striking distance, and Jesse Winker is a stud that's going to help them win games that they shouldn't win as the season goes on. But this team would still be in 4th place without Jesse Winker. Yes, their record would be worse, but I mean, as much as it hurts me to say, because Jesse Winker's been an absolute baller this year, hitting .355 with 17 home runs and an OPS of 1.060, he just hasn't been as valuable as Jacob deGrom has. And if the season ended today, my vote would go to deGrom for MVP.
Yeah, it would for me as well. I think the 2 guys that I would vote for MVP in their respective leagues are Jacob deGrom in the National League, and I would turn in my vote for Shohei Ohtani in the American League. I really would.
Yeah, it's tough for me. Ohtani is definitely in that conversation just because of the different ways that he helps the Angels win games. Yeah, it's really hard. I don't know. I mean, I want to say like guys like Bogarts and Martinez are in that conversation because they're both having great years, but Martinez is a DH and Bogarts is not a good defensive shortstop. So I kind of consider all sides of the game when I do this. So yeah, Ohtani's definitely up there. Another guy, I don't know. I would have said Buxton, but he got hurt. Maybe Marcus Semien with the Blue Jays. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is in that conversation as well. But Semien's had a really good year with the Blue Jays. Vladimir Guerrero is going to be the starting first baseman in the All-Star game. He's hitting like .337 with 16 bombs, I think. He's been really, really good. And if he's able to get back healthy and stay healthy the rest of the season, don't count out Byron Buxton either.
No, you can't. And Buxton is certainly one of the league's superstars right now because he's insanely fast, and he helps the Twins win games, which ironically they're not doing a whole lot of right now.
Well, and for 5 years, Buxton was an elite defender and an elite athlete that hit .230 and led the league in strikeouts and just never hit. And now, yeah, he still strikes out, but he hits .280 and he gets 25 home runs and he drives in runs. And I mean, Buxton's turned into a 5-tool superstar. And when the Twins took him number 1 overall back in 2010 or whatever year they took him, this is what they were expecting to get. And, he was a late bloomer. It took him a few years to put everything together. But now that he's put everything together, I mean, damn, what a talent.
Yeah, and he's certainly awesome. One of the guys one of the few players in baseball that I would make time out of my day to watch.
one of the few players in baseball that I would spend money to watch play. I usually, I go to baseball games to watch a team or to watch a certain matchup. There's not many players that I would go out of my way to watch. And it's, for basketball, Luka Doncic comes to mind, or LeBron James. For football, it would be players like, Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers or Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, guys like that. But in baseball, the list is not as big. It's Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani. I'd throw in. See, this is another debate. Like, which athletes would you spend money to see play? I think I would spend money to see like Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, just because I think that's a cool thing. Chris Sale for sure, because he's what I wanted to be when I played. Really tall, skinny lefty. And then, Byron Buxton. That's what comes to mind. I like guys that make an impact on every aspect of the game. And as much as I love the Reds don't have a guy that's an elite bat, an elite glove, an elite speed, stuff like that. Their best players are Castellanos and Winker, and great hitters. Both are not great defenders, and both are decent athletes, but don't have top-tier speed. Buxton's one of the fastest players in the league, the best defensive center fielder in the league, and he hits 280 with 25 bombs. He just does it all.
Yeah, yeah. And there are guys on that list as far as baseball goes for me as well. Guys like Trout and, Betts, Bellinger, Buxton. There are other guys as well. I know you don't like him at all, but Yadi Molina is a guy who I would go out of my way to watch, and there are other guys as well. I love Castellanos and Winker also, two guys that are awesome. Acuna is another one.
Acuna's a good one.
That's really good.
And I know you don't like him because he plays for the Pods, but we're getting close. Where sometime in the next year, I might say I'd spend money to watch Tatis.
Right. And he is certainly also a guy who's, a rising star in the MLB right now. And I never thought I would say this about a guy, but this year, if we're going on base this year alone, Buster Posey is one that I would go out of my way to watch also.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. All right. Well, 2 hours in the books. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on this Thursday afternoon. We'll be back at it tomorrow, 1 to 3. It'll be a little weird tomorrow because we're going to be gone for the first part of the show. It'll be obviously still airing like normal, but a little bit different. Worst case scenario, follow us on social media. And if we end up having to do YouTube only, we might. But we'll try our best to do both radio and YouTube, but we will let you know for sure. But thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow. Parker, any closing thoughts?
No, it's just a good show today. It was really fun. These tier lists are a blast to do. So I'm looking forward to what we have in store for tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Any people coming to orientation on Friday? We can't wait to see you there.
For sure.
Look for the WWSU table. We'll hook you up with some brand new hot cards, some T-shirts, a lot of that stuff, and we'll tell you more about how you can be, the next voice of WWSU. So we're excited to meet everyone. We're excited to see everyone tomorrow at orientation, and we'll see you tomorrow for the show as well, 1 to 3. So until next time, for Parker Testa, I'm Shea Neal saying so long and keep it real.